The movie begins with the protagonist goes for the third time to the southern part of the area because he is convinced there are still traces of the metal. While searching for it, the geologist gets bitten by a snake, so he makes a cut on his hand to extract the venom. When he tries to get his phone to call for help, it falls into a hole. He runs through the forest trying to reach the cabin quickly to contact an ambulance, but by the time he arrives, he starts feeling weak and faints. His body tries to expel the venom on its own, but later he feels a strange pain in his body and a high fever. When he wakes up, he looks at his hand and finds it swollen. He still can't get up to call for help. On that day, he notices two men trying to enter his house, but when they realize he is sick, they leave without helping him. He remains in this state for several days, hovering between life and death. Finally, when he recovers, he finds the wound on his hand healed. After drinking water, he goes back to sleep and wakes up the next day feeling completely recovered. After taking a shower, he heads to his car and finds it covered in dust, as if it had been parked for a very long time. When he reaches San Francisco, he notices the place is deserted and tries to understand what happened. He finds corpses lying in the streets as if it were normal. As he walks further, he sees military vehicles with bodies inside them as well. Then he finds a message on a screen stating that a global outbreak has occurred and the US government has shut down shelters. After reading the message and understanding what happened, he drives to his family's house. There, he discovers that they too were infected. When he enters another room, he finds his father's corpse on the bed and his mother's body lying on the bathroom floor. After crying for a while, he digs a big grave in the garden to bury his family and bids them farewell. At night, he sleeps in his old room. The next morning, he goes to the church and finds countless bodies of people who sought refuge there, hoping to survive the disease. Then he heads to the supermarket to get some supplies he needs. He tries to leave the city but discovers the bridge is closed. Frustrated, he realizes it was the only way out. He keeps driving until he reaches Los Angeles, which is also deserted. After taking a hot shower, he decides to go to a bar. There, he is surprised to find Milton. Milton shows him a video explaining everything that happened regarding the outbreak that killed millions of people. A few days ago, Milton and Wayne met at the same hotel, and since then, they have been reminiscing to forget the people they lost. The next day, the group eats the meal Milton prepared. At that moment, the protagonist, AC, mentions his plan to search for other survivors. However, he learns that the people he met have a different plan. They intend to end everything. It seems the hotel's generator will keep running for a few weeks, and during that time, they have enough food and water. But when the power goes out, everything will end, and they plan to end their lives with the gun they have. When AC hears this, he asks why they don't go out into the world and find other ways to survive. But after all they've been through, none of them want to live any longer as they see no reason to keep going. When AC realizes the two are determined to stay there until they die, he decides to leave to avoid losing his sanity. He takes the car and drives off, feeling deeply frustrated, stopping only when he finds a dog in the street. At that moment, he decides to adopt the dog and names it Lucky. After putting it in the car, he returns to his hometown and decides to stop by a library. There, he selects books on various topics to study. For a year, the two manage to survive one day. While standing on the balcony, he notices smoke coming from a chimney. He hopes someone else is alive. After a while, he decides to visit that house. When he arrives, he meets Emma. She welcomes him warmly, and after ensuring he poses no threat, she invites him into her home and tells him she arrived in the area a few days ago. While drinking tea with him, she shares stories about her journey to San Francisco and invites him to stay the night. The next day, instead of continuing his journey alone, AC suggests Emma move in with him so they can help and support each other in this miserable life. After Emma examines her new home, she checks the quality of the soil in the garden to see if it's suitable for planting anything. During this time, AC cuts the rope he had hung from the ceiling because now he has found someone and feels there is a reason to live. When he looks in the storage room, Emma notices a mouse in the house. AC goes to the supermarket to buy rat poison. There they each take a cart to gather everything they need. Emma gets scared when she sees the corpses of a mother and daughter on the floor. Despite everything she has been through in the past few months, she still can't get used to the sight of corpses everywhere. But this gives her the motivation to keep trying to survive until the end. After a few days, Emma and AC become very close, as if they've known each other for years. Over time, they grow even closer and begin to trust each other more. When AC starts thinking about building a family with Emma, he goes to get solar panels to ensure they have electricity in the house. While installing the panels, he falls off the roof and breaks his leg. Emma treats his injury and tells him she misses the feeling of being around people. When AC recovers, Emma tells him she is pregnant. AC becomes anxious and worried after hearing the news. He fears he won't be able to ensure her safety during childbirth or provide a good life for their child. But Emma helps calm him down. The very next day, he goes to the library to search for books on childbirth. as there will obviously be no hospitals or doctors to assist his wife at the time. In the following months, they try to maintain a good diet. But one day, she craves meat. Her husband goes out hunting and brings back a cow, even though he has no experience with that kind of hunting. He does what he can to meet his family's needs and follows the instructions in the book to learn how to butcher the meat. While doing this, he feels disgusted and needs some time before he can finish. After removing all the parts he needs, he returns home with the meat she requested. Finally, he completes the installation of the solar panels. After the cats disappear, the number of rats starts to increase until they take over the streets of San Francisco. In the middle of the night, they encounter many rats approaching them. Issei tries to push them away, and Emma fights them with fire. They also light a fire to get rid of the garbage that the rats have collected around them. Issei throws away the remains of the cow he hunted a few days ago because its smell attracts more rats. Despite their efforts, the rats try to enter the house again. Issei and Emma rush inside, closing all the doors and windows to prevent any intruders. However, after securing the house, they realize that Lucky is locked outside. Issei quickly opens the door to rescue him. However, the rats seize the opportunity to enter the house. Issei spends the entire night trying to get rid of them, and after he finally gets some rest from them, he helps Emma treat her wounds. Indeed, days pass by. The number of cats increases again, solving the rats problem. When the time comes for Emma to give birth, her husband tries to help her in every possible way. He manages to deliver the baby without any medical assistance. A year after that crisis, he comes home after a very long day of hunting. By chance, he hits an animal on the road. When he gets out to check if the animal is okay, he finds his daughter and runs after her, trying to communicate with her. However, the girl is scared of him and tries to keep him away. Eventually, she realizes he doesn't intend to harm her. At that moment, he tells her he's married, has 2 children, and lives with other people. He offers her a place to stay with them if she has nowhere else to go. But instead of staying with them, she decides to remain alone in the forest. Yet, after Issei returns to the car, she follows him and hides in the car trunk. When they arrive home, Issei introduces her to his family, but the girl remains silent. They decide to give her some time to adjust. At dawn, Maureen brings breakfast to the girl, but Livia hits her and keeps her away. With patience and time, Maureen gains her trust. When Livia takes a shower, Maureen curiously looks through her belongings and finds a notebook filled with drawings. Later, she prepares a room to welcome her. Meanwhile, George and Issei go out hunting and find the hut where the girl used to live with her family. Although they have no idea what happened to her family, they realize something horrific occurred there. When they return home, they hear the letter Maureen found in the girl's bag being read aloud. They understand that she stopped speaking due to a psychological trauma she experienced. The family decides to adopt her to ensure she has a good childhood. A few weeks later, Emma and Issei have their 3rd child and are overjoyed. A year later, while the children play in the garden, Issei hears something approaching. He grabs his gun and, along with Emma and George, goes to investigate. They find Molly's family. The woman tells them she read the sign Issei had written on the wall 7 years ago about others living nearby. That's why they decided to come. After feeding them, Maureen and George suggest there's an empty house in the area if they want to stay in the town. However, Issei objects to the idea, expressing his distrust. Despite this, Emma manages to communicate with the newcomers. The next day, Issei goes out with them to gather food. While searching, Molly enters an abandoned hospital and finds a dog. She scares the dog away and extinguishes the fire. She opens the medicine cabinet and takes everything she finds. Over time, Issei realizes he can trust these strangers, and Emma is proven right again. As Jane becomes pregnant, the family grows even larger. The woman receives great support from her friends who help her with her new child. Later, Maureen also gives birth to her first child, and George becomes very excited about becoming a father. In a short time, the families form a small community. They gather to celebrate Hades' 13th birthday. On that day, a strong storm occurs, and the girl notices that Lucky is missing. Issei becomes worried about his dog and goes looking for him. After a while, he finds him dead under a tree branch. When Emma hears her husband scream, she understands what happened and goes to console him, knowing how much he loved the dog. The next day, Issei buries the dog in the garden. While working, he notices a leopard approaching the children to attack them. He jumps in front of the animal and tries to confront it, but the leopard bites him. At that moment, only Livia is present. Seeing the man who helped and saved her in such a situation, she finally speaks and screams, calling for help. The others arrive just in time. Molly relies on her friends to treat Issei. After ensuring her husband is okay, Emma goes out and kills the leopard that attacked him with 3 bullets. A few weeks later, Issei starts walking again and gradually recovers. Years later, Hades and Hive, Jane's eldest son, decide to go on a journey around the country to explore the world outside San Francisco. After bidding farewell to their families, the young men begin their journey, promising to return before winter. Weeks later, the family is affected by drought and goes to water companies to investigate the issue. While traveling, they encounter cars with other survivors and quickly return home. Issy, always protective of his family and distrustful of strangers, is cautious. However, Charlie follows them and tries to introduce himself. After introducing himself, Charlie asks if he and his family can stay for at least one night. Emma invites them to dinner. During their conversation, Charlie mentions he has a drill and can help them dig a well. Over the next 3 days, the men work together to extract water. In return, Charlie asks Issy to accompany him to refuel, so his family can continue their journey after finishing. However, Issy becomes suspicious of their intentions, believing they want to take over the land. When he shares his concerns with Emma, she scolds him, telling him he needs to trust people more. Trying to clear his head, Issy goes for a walk in the forest alone and loses his way. At dawn, Emma becomes worried and prepares to search for him. Just as she's about to leave, he returns. She scolds him for worrying her, but then notices he needed time alone and forgives him. Later, she begins to think he might be right about Charlie. The next morning, the men continue digging until water finally emerges. At that moment, Issy confirms his suspicions when Charlie reveals his true intentions, refusing to leave. After celebrating, the madman attacks Livia in the barn. When Issy hears her scream, he rushes to her and becomes enraged by what happened. He gathers his family and devises a plan to deal with Charlie after discovering the truth. When Emma learns what happened, she immediately declares that Charlie must be killed, relying on the support of their friends. Issy grabs a hammer and heads to Charlie's trailer, politely telling him to leave immediately. Of course, Charlie refuses. At that moment, Emma and her family come out, all armed. Charlie mocks them, and so he gets furious when he sees how audacious he is after trying to harm the girl. When she steps out to inform Charlie's men of what happened, she gives them the choice to either stay or leave with Silas. Since everyone knows Charlie's personality, no one objects and they ignore what happened. After Silas is banished from the community, he returns a few hours later, begging to be let back in. But Issy refuses to allow him back because he knows Silas was very close to Charlie and even intended to help him take the land from them. 3 years later, everything seems to be going well, but Issy's young son, Joey, begins showing symptoms of the same illness that caused the deaths of millions. Over time, the disease spreads to the rest of the people, and everyone works together to overcome it. During this time, Issy finds his daughter returning, devastated, as she tells them that Rev has died. When Issy hears this, he feels he is being punished for what he did to Charlie. He starts searching for a cure for his son and his friends. He crosses the bridge on his bike and enters an abandoned hospital. Before leaving, he spends a long time praying, asking for forgiveness, as he fears his son's suffering as a punishment on him. He asks for the pain to be transferred to him instead of Joey. When Jane finds out her son won't return home, she asks what happened. Hades tells her that during their journey, they found drawn arrows and followed them, discovering that the idea of finding other living people was taking them further off track than they had planned. That's why they decided to return. But before doing so, they camped on a hill to rest. Suddenly, a thief appeared, intending to take all their food. When Rev realized the man wanted to harm them, he tried to confront him, but the man stabbed him in the stomach. When Hades saw this, she grabbed an axe and threw it at the man, killing him. She then tried to stop the bleeding and save Rev, but he lost a lot of blood, and unfortunately, he died. The next day, Corey asks about the thief's appearance, and Hades describes the tattoos on his arms. They discover that the thief is Silas, who had attacked them before, but they decide to keep this information to themselves. During this time, Issy does everything he can to save his son and the others infected in the camp. They are quarantined, and everyone begins to recover except for Joey, who gets worse over time. After weeks bedridden, Joey sadly passes away. Issy is devastated by his son's death. He erases the message written on the wall and goes to the office, breaking everything in sight because it was Joey's favorite place. With time and his wife's support, Issy decides to move on and place hope in the future. One day, while walking alone in the forest, watching the sunset, he realizes that what he had been waiting for has finally happened. The planet has healed. A year later, Issy finds Joey's notebook and discovers his son's brilliance. Although he never attended university, Joey had sketched designs for radio frequencies and other modern devices that no one had been able to recreate. As he reads his son's thoughts in the notebook, Issy discovers that Joey dreamed of finding other survivors and sharing his inventions with them. To honor his son's memory, Issy decides to use Joey's notebook to build a radio to find out if there are other people left on the planet. With the help of his friends, he completes the project and spends hours trying to contact any colony. When his wife sees how obsessed he has become with the project, she decides to take him for a break, and they play basketball with their friends. After the game, Hades talks about the arrows she saw during her journey with Rev. According to her, the arrows had a sequence of numbers. When Issy hears this, he feels that if he adjusts the frequencies to the numbers Hades mentioned, he might be able to contact survivors. He becomes very excited about the idea, and with the help of the others, they try it out. When they succeed, they hear the voice of a woman named Penelope, and they are deeply moved. The woman tells them she lives in a compound with 77 people. She explains that the place was originally a garden and is located less than 160 kilometers from San Francisco. The following week, Issy and his friends agree to travel there. They join these people and establish a larger and stronger colony. 50 years after the catastrophe that wiped out over 90% of humanity, Issy hands his hammer to Jack, Hades' eldest son. He feels fortunate to have lived long enough to meet his grandchildren. And that's where today's movie ends. Stay tuned for more videos